the squirrel. Okay, we're gonna be live. It's just starting. It's preparing us.
It says it's live for me.
It does. Oh, well, now it's live. All right. So a lot of you guys did not know that I was making this video today because it was kind of a spur of the moment situation. I hope you can all see me and I hope you can all hear me. If you are in the chat or if you arrive in a few moments, let me know if you can hear me. I'm here today with my friend Brittany, and we're going to be sharing some really creepy, like so creepy that I could barely sleep last night, ghost stories. But before we get started and before I introduce you to her, a lot of you guys came to my live stream last night and it was a lot of fun. And it went so well. Like, I couldn't believe the amount of people that came into, the live webinar, and you guys were chatting with each other. And some people even were like, I don't want to leave. I just want to stay in this chat room, because you were all interacting and communicating with each other. So it kind of makes me think that we should do more live events and more kind of community centered events. And last night we did a spontaneous healing, because I checked my card spread and the card of healing was super, super strong. So we just did like a spontaneous group healing. And some people were saying crazy things like, I had a sore throat all day and my sore throat just disappeared, or I could feel the energy that was like being brought up during the healing session. And I'm a healer, but I think that I believed that there were other healers in the room, and there were. And some of you that were healers emailed me last night after the live stream. And so I think I want to do like a kind of group healing event where a bunch of healers can come together live and we can offer healing sessions for free to each other, because it was super powerful. I could like feel it all over me. And last night after the session, I wrote a song, and I haven't written music in like a year. So maybe it was the healing session, or maybe it was just like the positive energy, but it was really cool. And the feedback that I received from the free readings was amazing. And some of you guys set up appointments with me, so that's great. And I'm very happy that we did that. So without any further interruptions, okay, perfect. We have some people that are watching. I know less people watch during the day sometimes because of working. Hopefully you're working. But yeah, so we're going to do more live events. I have some really amazing guests coming up for you all, and those will be announced in the future. One of them is an aura reader. One of them is like one of the foremost experts on nakshatras and the lunar nodes. And I'm going to be inviting other people on as well. So, Brittany,
Hi.
Thanks for being patient.
No.
Yeah, so we're like actually just going to have a chat. I talk to Brittany on Skype like often, and I met her actually because she's super interested in things like tarot cards and astrology, and she's had weird experiences her entire life with ghosts and things like that. Yes. And I do want to share the ghost stories, and we're going to get to that, but I think it would be really stupid if I didn't kind of talk about the astrology of seeing ghosts. And there are a lot of different things in astrology that can show psychic capacities and psychic capabilities and the ability to kind of connect with the other realms. But there is something in Vedic astrology that I have seen in charts and I have heard and learned that can really represent some kind of a connection with the afterlife, or some kind of a connection with spirits or ghosts. And that is one of the lunar mansions of the moon. So when the moon travels on its path, it creates what's called its ecliptic. And when you break that up into 27 different sections, you get the different mansions of the moon. And each mansion has a different energy, a different feel to it. And the moon can be placed in one of these mansions, or the moon is placed in one of these mansions when you're born, but also the planets themselves are going to be placed in these different mansions. And due to those placements, you'll have a certain kind of personality, or certain kinds of talents, or certain kinds of skills. And one of these mansions is called Bharani. And Bharani is very closely associated with the ability to see ghosts and to deal with the afterlife. And I was actually having a conversation with the astrologer Eve Mendoza, and we were talking about Bharani, and she has told me that people with Bharani nakshatra, as they get older, and this is very important for you, to hear, Brittany, but as you get older, you will have more and more of a responsibility towards helping souls that have not passed on to pass on. So the reason why you've been experiencing all these different situations in your life is because really, as your soul's developing, you're actually meant to assist this energy to pass on to the afterlife. And we're not going to go super in depth into Bharani nakshatra, but I have some different books about the nakshatras, and one of these books is by Dennis Harness. It's a really good book on the nakshatras, and he just explains it really well. So I'm going to read it straight from the book. But the deity connected with Bharani is Yama, the god of death. He is the agent of Lord Shiva. Yama means the binder and also refers to various yogic disciplines such as breath control, hatha yoga, and meditation. Yama guides the soul to the astral plane where it can experience the result of its karma from the present life and prepare for the life to come. So Yama is also the deity of sacrifice and discipline. So basically, Yama is responsible for getting people to the next life. And so when you have that energy very present in your chart, you carry that energy of Yama. And so there's always going to be elements of death or dealing with ghosts or dealing with spirits or dealing with the afterlife, and even kind of dealing with people in pain or, creative pain, because Bharani is represented by the female reproductive system. So that can also give people crazy periods and yeah. And it can make you have such a weird relationship with your creativity that it can at times be really painful. So Brittany has her sun in Bharani nakshatra in the 8th house, I believe, with the 8th cusp in Bharani. And I'm just going to actually pull that up just to be sure, because
Sounds like
I have your chart right here. Yeah, it's in the 8th house. And so that's going to be really super intense. The 8th house is like our deeper psychology. It's also the house of the occult. So, it's investigation. It's something that it's also the house of our own undoing. So it kind of makes sense that you've had sort of negative experiences with ghosts. But yeah, so it's going to be really interesting to hear your stories. I'm going to see if anyone's saying anything in the chat. Okay. All right. So let's do this. Let's hear your ghost stories. And actually, what happened was the reason that we were kind of doing this spontaneously is that I was talking to Brittany on Facebook, and I was just curious to know about her ghost stories, because she mentioned that she had seen some ghosts. And she started telling me these stories, and I was like, I just want to interview you right now because they're so creepy, and I want to ask you a million questions. And it was really late last night, and we were both kind of creeped out, and I seriously had a hard time sleeping because of that, and because I was making music, so I was all hyped. But when I was actually about to fall asleep, I would remember some of the stories that you were telling me, and I could not sleep. So
yeah. That's why I try not to think about them. I watched The Exorcist when I was in 6th grade, and I felt so many connections to it that even to this day, if any imagery from that movie comes up, I won't be able to sleep. I'll have to go out in the kitchen, turn the light on, walk around and figure out something else to occupy my mind to actually get myself back to sleep. But yeah, I feel like it's been I honestly cannot watch any religious horror films. Anything to do with demons and stuff like that, I have to move past.
Yeah.
Can't do it. And I love horror films. But I think it all started when I was a kid. And I know I don't want to call my family out here, but I know a lot of my cousins and my family members on my mother's side have experiences too, especially when we were all little. But mine, it was kind of odd because I had moved to this small town in Minnesota when I was, I think, in 4th grade or 5th grade. And I'd met all these new friends, and I remember telling them, I have an angel that watches me go to sleep at night. and like sits in my bed or sits on my bed with me and like makes me feel really comfortable. It was like a really visceral feeling that I had, that I like knew that there was somebody present there with me. And it was like, it'd be like if your grandmother was like petting your hair to make you go to sleep at night. And when I remember telling these girls, these new girls in the school, that they're just like, even as a young age, I knew that like, oh, this isn't normal.
Yeah.
And but it, like, I remember the moment that that registered too. I was sitting on the bedroom floor of my friend Tessa's house, and I told her about it, and she was just like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Like that doesn't happen for me. And I don't know if I don't ever remember really talking to my family about it. Yeah. I don't remember talking to my family about it. So my mother told me that I used to tell her these things and she would just kind of be like, cool, whatever. And then I started telling her that the ghost, I started calling it the ghost, was following me to school and bugging me. Like he was kind of hanging around too much, and he would like take the bus with me. And she was like, this is fucking weird. So so I remember one night I got home, went to sleep, and I had these I feel like this was really popular when like creative kids stuff is a thing, but there are these little plastic curly cues that you could hang from your ceiling, and I had those all over my ceiling. And I woke up in the middle of the night and vividly remember the air conditioning turned off, my fan stopped, and I was just kind of laying in bed in silence. And my house was creepy as was. It was built, it was like all wood, gorgeous, like all windows, lofted ceilings, like really open space. The least cozy house you could think of. It was like a really modern cabin in the middle of the woods, surrounded by cornfields. So
Children of the corn.
yeah, I had a moment in college where I invited friends over and we watched that out in the woods on a projector. So like all of the noise stopped. It was like utter silence, and had this like really like, it was like an urgency that I had never felt before. And I looked up and the stupid curly cues started like moving really fast. And as a young kid, I even understood, I was like, there's nothing that should be moving these. And so I I obviously was paralyzed because I was young and terrified. So I was living on the first floor. My parents' bedroom was on the second, and I was all by myself. So I rolled out of bed and army crawled down the kitchen hallway and up to my parents' bedroom. I didn't wake them up because I thought they were going to think I was crazy. And I just fell asleep on the floor next to my parents' bed. And years later, my dad told me, he's going to be pissed if he hears this, but my mom and dad both woke up at the same time, like when I walked into that room, and fell asleep. My mom went up to go to the bathroom, and when she came out, she like looked over in their vanity. They had like a dresser with a big vanity mirror, and she stopped. My dad looked, and there was a man standing in the doorway.
Ooh.
And they looked into the doorway, and he wasn't there. So it was like a very like, this isn't real situation, but this is here and I'm seeing it in this. It was only in the mirror. So my dad was like, you need to get this taken care of. And for me, I just thought I was crazy all these years. And then as an adult, my family finally told me what happened. And my dad is so anti-ghost and like thinks he doesn't want to talk about it. So that happened, and my mom ended up calling a woman over to clear the house. And it ended up being, this is what the woman said, I was so young, but it ended up being my great-grandfather who had in life treated the women in the family really horribly. So she said that he came back, and actually made a lot of sense because it just, like when I was little, it really felt very familial and comforting, and like somebody was there and like taking care of me. And it was, I never met him. He died before I was born. But he wanted to come back and prove that he could be a good man and like take care of something and not abuse something. And my mom told me, she's very dramatic, but she told me that they like sat and talked through this medium, and she felt his hands on her shoulders, and then he was gone. Like that's all he needed, I guess. And sincerely, I have never felt that presence in my life ever again. After that moment of him like waking me up in the middle of the night and scaring me and like bringing me upstairs, like I've never felt him around. However, that house, I really believe that people can magnetically attract negative energies with like if they don't take care of themselves.
Okay, 1 second actually. Can we, for some reason I feel like your internet's being really weird.
Oh no, okay.
Like you're cutting out a lot.
Really? Shit.
I don't know. Yeah, is there like a better place in your apartment for the internet?
Should I just move back to the living room?
Yeah, let's see if that works better. She has a fire alarm that kind of goes off a little bit, so it's going to be loud, but let's see if the connection improves. Or maybe it's just the fact that we're going live now, because it was fine before.
Yeah. Okay. Better? Can you hear me?
Yeah, now you're not cutting out, so we'll see if it works.
I have 2 different places in my house for these things. But yeah, do you have any questions about that part?
Well, you were saying that you believe that people can magnetically attract stuff like that to them.
So I had an uncle who had, I honestly don't really know his background that well. I know that he was abusive and terrible. But he lived with us for a little while in that house. And it's crazy because during that time, all of a sudden, like the energy in the house just entirely shifted. And it was really poltergeisty where I would come home from school and I would always make sure to close the garage door, lock the garage door.
1 second. I'm gonna try. Yeah, I'm gonna try switching my internet. I might have to reconnect us to this whole thing, but let's just try and see if it does it anyways. I'm gonna go to my faster. Sometimes it switches back and forth. So let's see if this helps. 1 second. If I have to call you back, I have to call you back.
Okay.
Okay.
Is it me?
I think it's working now. So it could have just been me. So you were talking about the garage door.
Okay, yeah. There were times when I would come home, set the alarm, make sure the garage, you'd have to make sure the garage door was locked and shut to set the alarm. Mm-hmm. And I would be sitting in my kitchen on my computer, and then the alarm would just go off because then I would walk over and the garage door was completely open. We'd always our basement door open, which led into the kitchen. The dogs wouldn't even go downstairs. Like they wouldn't sit and stare at the basement downstairs, but they would never go downstairs. If you forced them downstairs, we would go play hockey in the basement. If we wanted them to come down with us, because it sincerely felt like you needed somebody down there with you, or you needed to go down there, do what you need to do, and run back up. Like I get sick thinking about it. I have nightmares about that basement still. Like I'll wake up in the morning and it's just like a vivid nightmare of me going down there. And there's nothing even that's there, like a present. It's just a feeling of like this sick feeling of just fear. It's like a primal feeling. So that was happening, and I remember I moved my bedroom upstairs because my brother, I can't remember. Anyway, I moved my bedroom upstairs and there was a bathroom attached to it. That might have been why I moved my bedroom upstairs. And I remember every time I was in that bathroom, when I took a shower, I would crack the door open. And this is crazy to say because it was when I was in the shower, I would be thinking like, I need to keep the door open. So if anything happens, I can like run out, or if I hear somebody come in, or if I hear something like happen downstairs, I'll be able to run out and like save myself faster, which is like the craziest thing to think of in a bathroom. Like when you're just supposed to be showering and get ready. Like I lived in the middle of nowhere, nothing was going to happen, but it was just that like fear. And I would always make sure like my cat or a dog was in the bathroom with me because it was so freaky. And that woman, she walked into that bathroom. This is the same woman who came over with my great grandfather. This is all sounding so insane, but she walked into that bathroom and got sick. She got sick, and she refused to go back in there because she said it was so horrific. And this was the room that my uncle stayed in when he lived with us. She said that the energy, it was like a giant black mass just living in this bathroom. And I was like, well, that makes sense, because I was having these feelings about it. And she didn't want to go and get rid of it because she was afraid of it. And my mom said she forced her to do it. 1000% believe she did not get rid of that thing, because even just we sold that house, so we sold it in 2012. But when I stayed there, even like in 2011, 2012, she probably got rid of it in like 99 or 2001 or something, you know. Mm-hmm. There was always something in there, to the point where I would cover the mirror before I went to sleep at night because I didn't want to see anything anymore. Like you would see like black shadows walk across the closet. I would hear scratching on, this is a second story window. I would hear scratching on the windows, and that house was just nightmarish. Glad to get rid of it. It was beautiful. The views were gorgeous, but oh man, it was clearly just not going away. And also, like, after that woman came to our house, I kind of started to get more comfortable with my spirituality. And that's when I started using tarot cards and Doreen Virtue angel cards. And I would like write in my little notebook all of like Archangel Ezekiel, Archangel Mike, and I would try to study them and like call upon them to help me. It was really funny. But I've also, like, as a young child, I have really, really vivid dreams. And they're never good. They're like horrific, vivid nightmares where it's kind of like having night terror, or what is that called when you're sleep paralysis? Mm-hmm. It's kind of like that, but I'm actually asleep. Mm-hmm. And it seems more like something's communicating some information to me. Where it's like, it's so hard to explain. Like, I've even tried thinking about it. I'm just getting chills. But the night terror thing too. I mean, I've experienced that 100 times at that house. But I would have an astral projection sometimes in that house, and it would be like I would wake up and start this, like, I didn't know what the hell it was. I was young and had no idea. But I would wake up, be pretty paralyzed, but know that I had control over it. And this always happened where it felt like a dog jumped up on my bed and kind of circled around, like made itself comfortable and laid down. And then sometimes it felt like something was like crawling up to to where my neck was. I hate that house. So, I mean, we sold that. I mean, and then also, like, whenever I moved in with my aunt for a second, and they lived in this beautiful house in the woods. And for whatever reason, it started off really, I think for me, they kind of, ghosts or whatever these things are testing me to see if I can hear them, or if I can feel them, or like they always just test the waters before they're like really in my face. But I was living there pretty peacefully for a few months, and then all of a sudden, when I was laying in bed in the dark, I would hear a man whisper my name in my ear, like very clear as day. And I would kind of get up and look around and be like, what was that? And then convince myself I was insane, obviously, because and in my head, there's nothing. But it was like, And it's crazy how I got this information, because he never, whatever it was never like sitting there speaking to me, but just kind of sending me information. And it was this man who was like treated his wife really horribly and wanted my help. And she was still alive. And I was young, and I'm getting chills thinking about it. And I was just like, I can't. I just tried to ignore it, and I tried to ignore him. And so what he did was, when I was trying to go to sleep, he would send me really vivid photos or like images of like death, like scenes of like horrific death. It was like a movie playing in my head. And it would be like a horrific car crash, or like a bloody skull, or it was just, and I thought I was going insane. So what I would do, or what I try to do, is I would move upstairs and sleep on the couch, and nothing would happen. It was only in that room that would happen. So I like called my mom, and we kind of figured out, we like put salt in all four corners of the room and like lit sage and stuff. And I was too afraid to be in the room at that point. And so I made my mom kind of get him out. And she shut the door and like talked to whatever. And he never bothered me again. And I think he left.
Wow.
Yeah. That was when I was in college. Man, it was always when I was over at my mom's side of the family's houses. But yeah, when I used to stay in the summers at my aunt's house to like watch her dogs or whatever, because it's a really beautiful place and she has a lot of fun stuff happening all the time. I would sleep in her bedroom, and I remember I was always terrified of that house, but I remember waking up in the middle of the night, and a lot of times I would, sorry, there's a gnat in my face. A lot of the times I would fall asleep with the lights on, and that's when things would sort of start up.
With the lights on?
Yeah, it's crazy. I would, in the dark, if it was all dark, it would be more like me having a really horrible, vivid nightmare of like a ghost girl in the corner who wants to like be mean to me, and like walking up really slowly. Like in the dark, that's what would happen. Like I would never see anything if the lights were off. When I woke up. But when I woke up and the lights were on, that's when they would like present themselves to me. But for whatever reason, I've never seen an apparition. It's always been like a black mist or a white mist or a blue mist or whatever. But it's always in a certain shape. And the way it moves is like kind of like a jellyfish, really. It's strange. I don't know if have you seen like before?
I'll tell everyone some ghost stories too, because I used to live in a very haunted house. But I only have ever seen a ghost when I was like really young, and I could feel them, so I would always like not allow them to show themselves to me. And I've seen like an angelic orb before, but I shut that off, the ability to see stuff. And I don't know if I'll ever turn it back on, but
I wouldn't.
I just leave it for my dreams, because a lot of ghosts come to me in dreams and in meditation. And that's when I can like more visually see stuff. But I was like really aware of it, I think. And I don't know why I had the insight or the ability to turn it off, but I also saw a psychic when I was 12 years old. This is when I first started to read tarot cards, like when I was 12, right before I turned 13. And she gave me like a protection visualization, which I've shared on my channel already. So it was like the white light protection. And that was really one of the things when I started to do a visualization that like kind of shut that off, you know?
Yeah.
So I think I got lucky like that. I met that psychic at that time. And then my grandmother was aware that I had that ability. So she was always like sending a lot of protection. But it wasn't until we left that house that all that stuff stopped. So I'll tell you those stories. What was that?
I think houses have personalities.
Yes.
And energies. And I'm super sensitive it takes me months to find new places to live. That's why I need to just buy a house at this point, because renting gets really exhausting, because there's no set time that I know when the house is right that I find to rent. And usually it just ends up working out, but yeah, like I'll end up living in Airbnb for a couple months just to find the right house, because I know what the wrong house can do to you. But yeah, I mean, I think the worst thing that ever happened was when I bounced around with my family members for a little bit, but I lived with my mother in Egan, and I have no idea what the woman who lived above us was doing, but she had some like strange habits. And I don't know if this came from her or what, but I was sleeping in the downstairs bedroom, and I would bring my cat in the room with me, and she would always be like scratching at the door to get out. And I knew it was because I was afraid of something in the closet, but I don't know why it took me so long to trust my like intuition and my feelings about things. But a lot of it has to do, I think, with like my mom and my dad being like, you're being over dramatic. It's nothing. Like, there's obviously nothing in there. You can't see anything. Mm-hmm. But it was like this, it was like a wall, like it, and it was like, don't fucking open that door sort of thing. Like, don't go in here. And this is the worst. And so I would just make sure my closet was closed every time I would go to sleep. But there's a week of time where when I would wake up in the morning, I had checked my phone and I would have sent out like one random tweet at 3:00 in the morning that just said, and I mean, obviously I would remember, it's not like I am not a heavy drinker or anything like that. It was, and I just remember seeing it and feeling like I've never in my life like I've never been a sleepwalker. Like I don't do this. So, and I wasn't blackout drunk. There was no excuse for it. And so in my head, I was like, this is wrong. And then later in the week, I woke up and I had got, like later in the day, I'd gone through my photos on my BlackBerry, so I had a BlackBerry at the time. And there were pictures in the middle of the night. I still have these pictures of my cat like running off the edge of the bed that I never took. And it's just this feeling where it's like, I was like, was somebody else doing this, or was I being like controlled by something that was doing, like telling me, or like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I didn't trust like what was happening to myself in that room. And I didn't know if it was me or if it was somebody, and it was this like horrific, unnerving feeling of like really not knowing what was happening and not knowing how to figure it out. So, and this was an American Horror Story season 1 came out, and I watched the first episode, and I went downstairs and I tried to read a book before I went to bed, because I remember feeling really kind of weird and freaked out. And so I ended up passing out with my lights on again, which I don't do anymore. And I woke up and kind of turned my head and looked. There's something about this where every time that a ghost has woken me up, it's like an automatic reaction where I look exactly where they are. But it looked like a perfect wooden mask with antelope horns just hovering above my bed. Like, it was like somebody had hung it from my ceiling right at the edge of my bed. And I kind of just like looked at it and stared at it for a second, like, who did that, you know? Mm-hmm. And when I looked at it, it did this thing where it was like a curious, like, who are you? And obviously I screamed bloody murder and like threw my sheets off my bed and like went to run. And like it was like a vortex itself back into my closet. And
oh my gosh, like you see these things in the movies and you think like that would never happen, like a vortex or like a swirl, or
and obviously I never thought that either. I'd never seen an apparition, nothing, but these like movie people must be talking to somebody, because that's exactly what happened. It just kind of like, it literally turned into a black hole like thing where it just like pulled itself back in. And I was shaking uncontrollably. My mother's dog, who is like the worst, it was like the worst. It ran away at some point, but it bit everybody. It went crazy if I even like opened the door to my bedroom, because it was trying to protect my mom, who was at the end of the hall. Like any noise that you would have made, it would have gone absolutely insane. Like if I screamed, it would have gone, it did. Nobody heard me scream. I screamed like my throat hurt the next day.
And no one heard you?
Nobody heard me, not even that stupid dog. And that part, I still don't understand. But so obviously I woke up, got the fuck out of there. Sorry if I'm swearing too much.
Oh, it's YouTube.
Okay, great. So I got out and just drove around until the sun came up, because I was like, there is not a chance I'm going back there. Except for I had to get my stuff. So I think like 2 days later, when I didn't have any clothes left, I went during the day. My mom was at work. Nobody was there. Sun was out. I went down there to the basement, and the way it was is like there's stairs, and then that led directly into that bedroom. So the doorway was just kind of barely askew from the stairway to go upstairs. And I went through my closet really quick, grabbed some stuff, grabbed my makeup, and there was like a plastic bag that I had left there that was, my grandfather had just died a year before. And so I had pictures of him and I, and like some other little things, like a wooden cross that he made, that were in that bag. And I just kind of decided not to take it. And so I left it in the doorway, maybe just like off the corner inside of the room. So my cat was in there with me. I walked upstairs, sat on the couch to do my makeup and watched TV. And after I sat on the couch, immediately I heard this like thump. And I was like, what the hell? I thought my cat had done something. And so I looked, and that bag was sitting in the middle of the stairway. And I was like, nah, I'm out of here. I've never had anything thrown at me in my life or touch me, nothing. Where's wood? But yeah, that was the worst. Drove to St. Paul, got myself a drink at a bar. And I think like maybe a month later, I moved into my own apartment, finally. Should have done it a long time ago. But and nothing ever bothered me again. I think like when I lived in Minneapolis, I would see like little glowing orbs, like neon pink or neon blue or whatever. It seemed really protective. It was just like little orbs kind of floating around me when I would wake up in the middle of the night. Since then, that's all I've ever felt, except for when I was at my aunt. Whenever I would like dog sit or babysit at my aunt's house in the woods. And even my friends have seen stuff there. So that place is messed up. I hope she doesn't watch this, because she really doesn't like admitting it.
Wow.
Yeah. But I mean, I have more. It's just those were the pivotal things that kind of got me into like talking to shamanic healer and like researching shamanism and astrology and all, like getting into tarot and trying to really making sure that my conscience is always clear and that I'm living a life that I'm comfortable and proud of, and like not attracting any of this kind of energy around me. and clearing it as much as I can. I still have really horrific nightmares sometimes that I feel like might mean something, but yeah.
Well, your 12th lord is with the sun in the 8th house, and your 12th house can oftentimes be the house of dreaming and, like sleep. And it's also like the house of death, but it does represent the dream world and the astral plane. And so that planet is with your sun, and it's so close to the sun that it's combust. And so a combust planet like that can give difficulties. And then it's in the 8th house, so it's in a difficult house. So it kind of makes sense that there's this theme around your experience that's not easy, or it's not beautiful in a lot of ways. Like it's beautiful and it's in a dark way, but it's, these are not easy experiences for you.
Yeah, my mother used to tell me growing up that she had a really crazy experience where something with her sister used to share a room, and they both said like a beautiful, like glowing angel showed up. And I was like, why hasn't that ever happened to me? Why does it always have to be like some demon mask?
Yeah, like that's so strange. Well, you said you saw those little orbs, and I know that I've seen like an angelic orb before too. And when you see an angelic orb or like a nice orb, there's a beautiful feeling of peace and calm where you're like shocked, but it's in like a calm feeling.
Yeah, no, I didn't feel like running or hiding or anything like that when I saw those. And it's funny because I say orb because I don't know how else to explain it, but it was like little worms or like squiggly lines.
Weird. So when I saw the orb, it literally looked like a star. Like if you just took a star out of the sky and you put it in a room with you. And so you'd see a little bit more light off of it, but it still looked like a star, like the bright. So I don't know if you saw that video I posted on my personal Facebook page, but of that like weird little squiggly thing that I captured on camera in Montreal.
No, I didn't see it.
So there was one time I used to always be Skyping my boyfriend at the time. And so like I would use my laptop camera, and there was one night of a full moon, and I lived literally underneath the mountain, like a block from the mountain in Montreal. And it was like a very like spiritually intense day. And I just had the camera on because I was like going to Skype this boyfriend of mine. And I captured like these little squiggly things flying around. And I never believed in fairies, but that kind of made me think like, okay, there must be little tiny like sprite like spiritual creatures that live by mountains, because I like did all this folklore research. And yeah, so there was like mountains and oak trees, and apparently fairies or these kinds of spirits like to live in oak trees and by mountains. And so I don't know, like I never truly really believed in fairies, but I've heard a lot of people email me talking about them, and that experience was like, okay, there has to be like benevolent otherworldly creatures,
Oh yeah, I know. And like trying to talk to other people about it is really funny.
Yeah, and they will think people think you're crazy, and I like having this kind of a platform because people email me all day long, like all these things that they have never told anyone, which to me is like
special,
normal. Well, to me it's like normal. To them they're like, I could never admit this to anyone that I know.
I know. And honestly, being open about it, even people who claim to be super closed off, I've realized they all have their own story. That they've just tried their whole entire lives to rationalize in some manner.
Yeah. Okay. Like, do you want to hear a really creepy story? This isn't my own story, and I'm not going to like say whose story it is, because they would never want to admit that they saw this ghost. But I knew this guy once, and when he was a kid, he had to go to the hospital for something. Like I think he either got really sick or he had to get a surgery, but it was like something kind of like something pretty normal, like I had to get my tonsils removed or something. So he was in the hospital, and he had to stay like a few nights there just to recover because he was so little.
Yeah.
And one night after he fell asleep, he kind of woke up in the middle of the night, just like an innocent little boy. And he looked at the doorway, and like things were looking really different. Like there was this, how you can share hospital rooms, or like you share a hospital room.
Yeah, and there's a little divider.
Yeah, so he had been the only one in the room when he fell asleep. But when he woke up in the middle of the night, there was like a nice orange glow in the room, and there was a little girl that had moved into the bed next to him, and he had like all of his get well soon balloons and everything and like his gifts, and then she had some too, and they were talking, and he was like, oh, it's just so nice to have someone in the room with me. And it was like real as day, like unbelievably real. And he was just a little kid, so he was talking to this girl, and she kind of looked like she was from like the early 1900s. And so he's like, well, that's kind of weird, like she's wearing a really weird gown, and the room kind of looks different, but you know, maybe I'm just sick. When he woke up the next morning, he was talking to the nurses, and the nurses, well, when he was talking to the nurses, he asked them, oh, what happened to that little girl? She was so nice. We were talking, and, you know, what happened to all of her stuff? Did she go home? And they looked at him like he was crazy, and they were like, what little girl? You've been the only one in this room the whole time you've been here. And he is an adult man, and he cannot sleep without a light on, or, you know, like, yes, because it freaked him out so much from the, like, he was like 6 or 7.
Yeah, and the adults probably didn't help.
The adults?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, they're like, no, child. You've been the only one in this room for centuries. And so he is like this person that would never admit to seeing ghosts, but he communicated with one and was like, became friends with this girl. And
yeah, it's so crazy.
So that's a real life experience. But I used to live in a haunted house. I want to hear more of your stories, but I'll tell you some of mine so that you won't feel so alone. But I lived in this house, and for sure 3 people have died in it. And it wasn't horrific. It wasn't like murders or anything like that. But it was just one of those houses where like death congregated, you know? There was like dark energy in a way, but one of the deaths, I think 2 of the deaths were natural, like the people that lived there like passed on of natural causes. And while I'm saying this, I'm feeling like all this energy right here. It's so weird.
I'm feeling it all on the back of my neck to like my lower back.
Oh, it's so creepy. Okay, but I mean, we're saying it's creepy because it is creepy, but there are spiritual implications, like the fact that Brittany and I can communicate with ghosts in a way gives us a responsibility spiritually. And that's what I was talking about with Bharani nakshatra, because having that nakshatra present or dealing with that energy or coming into that energy gives you a responsibility towards helping people cross to the other side. And so there are ways to do that. And maybe I can bring an expert of that on so that people can learn, so that if you do have this nakshatra, you can work with it. So it's creepy, but it's also, people like us have a gift for it or a skill for it that's natural and inherent. And like, you could probably naturally do it without even ever having to learn something, you know? So we're saying these are creepy, but really it's just because our society or whatever is so far removed from it, we don't have a capacity or a way of understanding it. So anyways, a lot of people died in this house. One woman in particular died on prom night. So on prom night, she was having a bunch of people over before prom to like get ready and to have a party. And she went into the basement. So it has to involve the basement, of course.
Always.
So she went into the basement to go get a jar of pickles for the party, because they had like the cellar down there that we always used. And on her way down the stairs, she had an aneurysm. She fell down the stairs and she died. I cannot tell you how scary it was to go into that basement. Like, I would almost like hold my breath, run down there, grab whatever I needed and run up. And like, I didn't even want to think about it. We kept that door closed. It was the scariest, creepiest place in our house. And I had the same experiences as you, where as I would fall asleep at night, I would hear people whispering or saying my name or waking me up or poking me. So I'd wake up, and it was like, it would happen so often that like I kind of got used to it, where like I would just be sleeping, and as a part of my falling asleep, it would be like, Nicole, Nicole, Nicole. Like,
and it's funny because why would you like hallucinate somebody whispering? I don't know. I guess there's so many things, but
yeah, and like the energy in there was so bad. Okay, first of all, let me tell you, my room was already creepy. I don't know what my parents were thinking, but my room was decorated with clowns. Like, I had a whole...
with the the 90s, that was a thing, like primary colors. They're like, let's put clowns on this. And then primary balloons.
Yeah, so there was an entire shelf. Okay, this is the scariest image of my childhood. I had this weird, creepy room. When you walked into my room, the bed was on the left-hand side. It was like a small twin bed by a window. And then right above my ceiling was a little wooden trim square or rectangle. And it was like to the attic. And it was just right above my bed. And then
your mom and dad put you in the room with the attic door.
Oh, it gets creepier. And then my room was also connected to another room, which was my sister's room where she lived. And so that was like the master bedroom. And so my room was supposed to be like, once the people had the baby, they could put the crib next door, and there was no doorway. It was just an open, well, there was a doorway. There wasn't a door. It was just an open doorway so that they could easily access the child, you know?
Yeah.
So my sister lived in that room and I lived in basically the newborn room, but it was a big room. On the way from my room to her room, if you went like right before that doorway, there was a tiny door that was a storage door, and it would only really fit like a toddler or like a gnome or like a little person, right? It was just this tiny door that was like 2 feet high, and it was a crawl space where we kept all of our junk, and it was so creepy. And then above that was an entire shelf of clowns.
Oh. Who is into clowns in your family?
I think it was just like, people brought like a clown when I was born, and then more people were like, oh, I guess she's just going to be the clown baby that we give clowns to.
No.
Yeah. So then, yeah, so that was the room where you literally, like, I would not go upstairs alone. So it's that same feeling where like you feel like you're being watched. You feel like you always have to have every light on. If you go upstairs alone, you grab what you need and you run back down to where everyone else is.
Yeah.
And the energy was like palpable. It was scary. And in that house, poltergeist activity happened all the time. Like even when other people were staying the night, it was just incessant all the time. We almost got used to it. Lights would flicker on and off in the middle of the night, just whenever they wanted to. My light would flicker. My TV would turn on by itself all night long, like depending on the situation. It would just be like, I would wake up to like this really loud TV and I would just like get really scared and turn it off. My brother got a remote control thrown at his face while he was sleeping and just started screaming. Like it was from across the room, just whoosh, like for no reason at all. He started sleeping in the middle of his bed, like a dog with the covers pulled over him. Like it was, and we would all sleep together because we were so scared. So for a lot of my childhood, what was that?
I used to like sneak into, my brother had a bunk bed and I would sneak into his bedroom and go into the top bunk because I would always be so scared.
Yeah, it was so scary. Like I would go into my sister's room and we would sleep with the lights on with I Love Lucy reruns playing all night long.
Lucy is perfect. I would watch I Love Lucy in the middle of the night. Maybe it's because it was the only option, but
and it was funny and like positive.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was like the only antidote for that. But there are some really creepy stories. 2 stories that I can remember. And I mean, like, I didn't ever see anything. It was just like the lights flickering, things being thrown and stuff like that. But, and like that overall feeling that we were talking about. But one day my mom went into the kitchen and every single cupboard door, every single drawer was pulled out. Like every single cupboard door was open, everything in the kitchen. And she was like, okay, haha, kids, so funny. Cause I have a lot of siblings. So she thought like we were playing this practical joke. It was Friday the 13th. Ha ha ha. Like,
yeah,
this is great. So she closed all of them. And then she went into the other room for like a couple of seconds. None of us were around. And she goes back into the kitchen and every single cupboard, every single drawer is open again. And she's like, okay, like this is actually something.
So with that, what I've always found really insane is the immediacy and like the silence that it took for that to happen. Like when that sort of stuff used to happen to me, I was always like, you really think that your brain is playing tricks on you because there's no possible way that it can happen and you didn't hear it happen.
Yes.
It's like a blink of an eye. It's just there and then it's gone, or it's,
Mm-hmm.
I don't.
Yeah, and so she was completely freaked out. And then another time, and I believe this was another Friday the 13th, and I don't know if it's because your fear is heightened on those dates where you attract it then, or if it's really like Friday the 13th. But it's probably my mom's fear. She's probably afraid of ghosts. So one day she went into the kitchen again, and that's where the door to the basement was, and every single chair was in the middle of the room.
No.
In like a cluster. And she was like, okay, haha, funny. Like, this is great. So she calls us all down and she's like, okay, which one of you did this? Like, the drawers thing happened. Now, what's the situation? And we were all like, we didn't do that. And she was like, no, you need to tell me, you need to fess up. Who did this? We're like, we didn't do it. And she kept on being like, no, tell me that you did this. And it got to the point where we were crying, like, Mom, we didn't do it. Because we were all little kids. Like, why would we do this? And I don't think it happened again, like the drawer thing, but it was like, okay, like we were all just like, let's go out and get ice cream.
Yeah. Man.
Super creepy. But and I also have really positive ghost stories because I do some medium work. I don't advertise it and I don't want people to contact me to like set anything up. But there have been times in readings where I have communicated with ghosts or whatever, or I felt the presence of someone kind of go through me. And those have been like healing, beautiful times. And that's where I feel like that quality of that Bharani nakshatra can be positive, where it's like you're helping someone to heal, you're helping someone to let go of that.
Honestly, with that, I feel like my life has been that, where I've just been people who are going through like difficult moments where like their mother had passed, or like today's the day of the anniversary of this happening to them, and like those moments happen to me so often where I work in a job where it's really service based, and so I'm sitting there talking to people all of the time, all day long. So maybe it's just that, but I feel like it's kind of like a kinetic thing where those people just like come to me all the time. And even in my yearbook, people wrote like, thank you so much for being such a good listener, and like I love talking to you and stuff like that. So I don't know if it's I feel like I can sit and really listen to people who are struggling. And a lot of my friends who I've kept in my life have had a lot of dark things happen to them. And I think like maybe it's more of the idea that we've all struggled or like have been through these things. And so like we were sent to each other, I guess, because I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I feel like I had a client once who was starting to like give advice to people and like really trying to like counsel people. And she came to me and she was like, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I'm ready. And I was telling her, everybody can counsel each other. And I feel like people are brought into our lives at the right time to share whatever piece of information they have or whatever healing that they have. Like you should never disregard someone just because you don't think that they aren't qualified to give you advice or something, because everyone in your life is a teacher and everyone in your life can impart something. Not like you should pay someone $500 to, counsel you if they don't have, that's a whole different thing. But as far as like people believing that wisdom or healing can only come from one source is so silly, because life is always trying to bring people into our paths or situations into our paths to like give us what we need when we need it.
I agree.
Like I really do feel that what you need is always right in front of you. Like literally in front of you. Like this book could be exactly what I need to be reading right now again, because I've already read it.
Yeah. Except for if it's during Mercury retrograde, it seems like nothing you need is ever in front of you.
Well, yeah, that's another whole thing.
I feel like it hasn't, this time has been so much worse than all the others. Because usually I'm just completely unbothered and unaffected by it.
Same, because yeah, we've talked about that with your chart. Like it's not that bad for you usually. But this time it's been terrible. Like I got an iPhone stolen from me. My website's barely working. So, which I'm getting fixed, but it's just like all these crazy delays with things getting mailed out, like really like the most obvious Mercury retrograde problems you can possibly imagine.
Yeah.
One after the other. Huh?
My paycheck.
Really?
My car needed repairs, and the place I took it to originally tried to charge me $4,000.
That's so dumb.
Yeah, and then I took it to another place, quarter of the price. But never had car problems in my life.
I feel like if you put on a fake mustache and wore a wig, then you would get a better price. Because I feel like mechanics sometimes just look at a beautiful woman and they're like,
yeah, I know. And then I went to a woman. That's, I think, the difference. She was like, "Are you kidding?"
yeah. Like hairstylists should do that to men. Like, I know your hair is shorter, but I'm going to charge you 5 times as much because you have no idea about hair, you know?
Exactly. Get back.
Well, do you have a few more stories that you want to share before we let you go?
I thought of some when you were talking, and then I completely forgot them.
Okay.
Let me think.
We were talking about poltergeists, basements.
Yeah. I don't know. Except for the fact that, like, for me, the seeing them has never really, except for that one mask moment that was utterly shocking. It's always like an overwhelming sense of presence. Like whenever I walk into a certain person's house, like it's like an overwhelming understanding of who this person is. Or maybe that doesn't really have to do with ghosts, but sometimes it does. Like when I stay at my aunt's house in the woods, like as soon as she leaves, there it's not a big deal. But as soon as I'm the only person in that house, it's like this overwhelming thing where it's like, leave. We don't want you here. It's like this, like, we fucking hate you. Like, get out. And I remember I was babysitting one night and I had to call my mom because I was like, you have to come here. I cannot be here. You have to take care of the rest of this night. I remember I was like sitting in the living room trying to figure out if I should go to sleep or if I should just leave, because it was just like, and it just was like all on my back. This, when you can tell that like your boss is upset with you, or like one of your coworkers is around who really doesn't like you, that like feeling of like, just get out of the situation. And it was like it's always this urgent feeling of, or like a feeling that somebody is there who wants to do you harm, or like something sinister. That's for me is like, the feeling is always way more intense than like the one time I told you where I know my brother sees things, so he doesn't talk about it. My brother and I would be like staying at my aunt's house together because I didn't want to do it alone anymore, and she would always ask me to do it. I love that house too. It's really, really sad, but I hope she doesn't watch this. But we would be sitting on the couch and just like watching TV before we would go out and get dinner together, and there would be clear as day it's another open like cabin style home, lofted ceilings, like a bridge to get upstairs and all that stuff. So everything was very open and it echoed. A woman's voice saying something up in the upstairs bedroom, like talking like clear as day. And I remember just looking at him and being like, and then I was like, I'm not going to say anything because I'm not going to have him call me crazy. And then I remember he turned around and looked at me and was like, there's somebody else here. And like moments like that where it's just kind of like a check, like, okay, I'm not the only one who heard it this time. Or do you know what I'm saying? Where like my cousin and I were staying at my aunt's house in Seattle one time. See, all my aunts on my mom's side.
Yeah, there must be some kind of karma. And I haven't looked into your chart like super deeply or anything
Yeah.
to see,
Um,
but wow.
we were staying at our house and there was just a blue mist hovering over the, for some reason we were sleeping in the living room together because we were young and thought it was an adventure, but over the staircase. And my cousin liked to freak me out and stuff like that, but that time she was like dead serious, like we need to get out of here. And then yeah, I don't know. I think experiencing things with another person is helpful in like realizing that you're not a nutcase, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Or not even, that's not a fair word to say, but that you don't have some psychological thing going on.
Yeah, I'm glad that you shared stories like that because I think people do feel like they're crazy sometimes when they see that stuff. Like, okay, I just am being like I'm overreacting because I'm afraid of the dark or whatever it is, you know?
Yeah, like every guy I've ever dated. Yeah.
You need to date different guys.
Absolutely. But yeah, I mean, and honestly, since I moved to Texas and when I was living in LA, the only time I had any weird experiences in LA was when I was with other people who are really psychically like connected to themselves and like had experiences on their own. Like we would have shared dreams. That's really weird.
That's amazing. I've heard of that happening.
Yeah. And it's crazy because a lot of the women that I became friends with in Los Angeles had super strong psychic energy, very strong. One of my friends does this thing all the time where it's like her psychic hand is like gaining knowledge or something.
I feel this.
She'll be sitting there at lunch and she'll just be like, she'll kind of zone off a little bit and do this thing. And I'm like, oh no.
Is it her left hand?
Right.
That's so weird because the left hand is usually receptive.
I don't know. Yeah, I'm trying to think. Because yeah, no, I think it's her right hand because whenever I'm facing her, it's to the left. So it's the right hand.
That would be fun to talk to her.
Yeah, she's cool. So, yeah.
So
I haven't experienced anything. Texas is clear.
In Texas? Okay, someone was asking, have these hauntings got worse as either of you got older?
Yeah.
Really?
I'm sure if I stayed in Minnesota, it would have continued to get worse. Or like kept like staying at my family like houses, you know? My little cousins have really terrible experiences where my mom called me and told me that they're like 7 and 8. They were having like a man would come out of my little cousin's closet or something and tell him to be quiet, which for me is so funny. My little cousin just like waking up in the middle of the night to a grown man telling him to be
That's so terrifying.
No, I feel bad laughing, but just because he's a really quiet young boy too, but I'm sure like he was probably playing video games or something, you know. I don't know. Yeah, I feel like it got more intense as I got older, and then I took those shamanism courses and learned how to kind of shut energy out. I also, and this is probably not the most healthy, but I became like kind of obsessed with learning more about other people's experiences. So I would like read Reddit or watch like cheesy ghost shows on like Discovery Channel, you know, and like just trying to figure out, because honestly, a lot of psychics, there's so many psychics out there or like mediums or whatever who have like vastly different opinions about like afterlife and like ghosts and what like it can exist and like can ghosts change forms, you know, to like freak us out, and you know what I'm saying, like so I think it's gotten stronger, but I just have no time or no openness to it anymore because I learned how to shut it off. What about you?
So it's not as strong because I don't live around that, like I don't live in that house anymore. And my ability to connect with it if I want to, I guess, is stronger, like in meditation or like when I do readings, like that's stronger. But No, I do so many clearing exercises. And if you watch the 2 videos I made about protecting your energy, those are like pretty much all the things that I do. And that keeps all of that sort of away. Or I can dedicate like a certain part of my time to that if I want to. But like it doesn't, no, like things don't like try to contact me. And I know that there's a ghost in this apartment, but it's not like I'm having to deal with it or feel the energy of it or anything like that. I'm doing protection mantras all the time. I'm doing like a lot of sound clearing. I'm always keeping that space. And also, you were talking about how you can magnetically attract ghosts. And so there's like a lot of things with that. Like, first of all, it's my belief that like if you yourself are kind of in a state of disorder, that you can attract ghosts. Like if you're depressed, if you're sad, if you're not physically well. And like those are all really common things when you're younger and you're trying to figure your life out. And then also when your sexual energy is like really crazy, when it's like kind of just like out of control. So like a lot of the times people going through puberty will attract ghost energy because your sexual energy is like I've read this and I've also experienced this, like your sexual energy can really attract that energy because it's like a life force, you know? So after I really worked with my Kundalini energy and stuff like that, it's also been a totally different experience.
Yeah, I really need to practice that stuff more often.
Well, you've been through, I feel like for you, I know your life and I know that you've just been through like a lot of changes, you know, to put it simply. So that like that's a lot of like energy moving around your life that can also basically, you know, your energetic body should be like contained in a way. And I'm not saying I'm perfect, like I'm far from perfect, but like it's something that you like always need to work towards. And then when your environment is crazy or the people around you are crazy for lack of a better word, that can like make you more susceptible to other people's energy. And like even this eclipse has been so intense for me, you know, just because I'm sensitive. But
yeah, really bad for me too. But I mean, do you do that thing where you kind of surround yourself with like a repelling light of energy so that like nothing can kind of get in? I tried to explain it to somebody the other day, and she was like, like she didn't know what I was like, no, like you have to imagine yourself surrounded by a ball of vibrant healing light and nothing can get into it. And she was like, okay.
yeah, no, I do that all the time. Also, after we get off of this, like after we're done doing the streaming, I want to teach you a meditation that I teach my coaching clients that I think will really help you. It's kind of like a long thing, so I don't like tell the whole world, but because basically the more you change your vibration, the more that like lower vibrations aren't going to be attracted, because like we attract like attracts like, you know. Yes. So I think this will be a good thing that can help you a little bit too. But also I just want to say this because I don't want to be like, oh, it just you're like deranged so you're attracting ghosts. That's not what I'm saying, because people will just have a natural like responsibility towards that, you know. And I feel like you are one of those people, like you have a gift and that's why this is happening. But by kind of shifting your energy and learning some more protective things too, or doing that more often, maybe that will just help you to like contain it, which is where that's the point I'm at. It's just being contained. It's not like it doesn't exist anymore for me. It's just that you can kind of
that and like just being aware of what you're doing. Like don't go into a haunted prison. Expect to not be attracting things, you know. Like when people are surprised when something follows them home or like from a negative experience, you know, I just don't. You just try to keep healthy people around. I mean, obviously I'm not that good at it all the time, but
yeah, like I don't play with Ouija boards. I don't do seances. I actually
portals.
Yeah, I refuse to read for certain people, actually, even if they want to pay me a lot of money, because you can tell like if someone's trying to make your work dark. Like I don't come into my work from a dark place. Like I was raised Christian, so I believe in something higher and more beautiful and like what's the word? Beneficent? Is that how you say that word? I don't know why I can't think of it. What was that? Benevolent.
Yeah.
Benevolent is the word I'm looking for. I didn't get much sleep last night because I was scared of ghosts.
Yeah, sorry.
Benevolent. I believe in something like that. I don't believe I'm not like, oh, I study astrology and tarot because I don't believe there's like something greater than me and we're all going to hell, which I think people believe like just because you study tarot, like you're evil.
Yeah. I texted you that day. I turned on like random Netflix series when I'm just like need to zone out or like clean my house and just have background noise. I kind of moved to podcasts with that, but I was watching this really cheesy show on Netflix called Paranormal Survivor. And it's really depressing to me because I could tell that they're kind of taking advantage of the people that they were interviewing. Mm-hmm. And they had hired like the most like, what's the word? Not fantastical, but like people who say that they're mediums, but like kind of do it to like, oh, tarot brings in like evil spirits and this brings in evil spirits to like really freak people out.
Oh, so it's just like trying to get different reactions for TV.
Yeah, and it was just so sad to me because I've never heard tarot being used to bring in spirits in any way.
I know. Okay, first of all, I just want to let people know that are watching, if you have any questions for Brittany, please write them now because we probably won't be live for too much longer. But I wanted to ask you, Brittany, like, have you noticed in your own life, has tarot, angel cards, meditation, anything like that made this stuff worse or like brought in more spirits or anything like that?
No, honestly, I've fully stayed away from anything that, because I get energy from things before I even go into it. Like Chrissy, our friend,
Hi, Chrissy.
tried to bring in a Ouija board to my house one day, and I was like, if you even bring it into your car and drive to my house with it, I'm not letting you in my driveway. Like, I don't mess with stuff that I know is gonna like going to possibly bring in negative stuff. Like, I just won't do it. And with tarot, it's like I feel like I have a choice to who I call upon to offer me advice. And it's never going to be like something bad.
Right. And to me, when I am using the tarot, I'm calling upon my own inner wisdom, the wisdom of the person I'm reading for. And very, very occasionally a guide will come through, or like even more rare, a passed on loved one, and usually that's not even through the cards. Usually that's just because the person has had the great fortune of having a reading with me, and that person that's passed on recognizes that they can kind of use me as a medium.
Yeah.
And that's only if I choose to let that happen. So like, it's very fated and it's not something that you could pay me for and then I would just be able to do, it has to just happen naturally.
I just feel like whatever you choose to bring to the table is what's going to come. Mm-hmm. Like, if you want that to happen, then you won't go ahead, but I'm not going to call for anything like that.
Yeah. And I will say that meditation, when I was learning how to like really go to higher states of meditation, like the highest states I've ever been in, I was having a hard time coming down from those states. And sometimes I would get kind of trapped in this is all sounding like really weird, but I would get trapped in lower states where I would feel, it would basically be like a plane where a lot of ghosts are. And they would just be saying, help me, help me, help me, help me. Like,
that's why I stopped meditating.
So you've had that too?
It's more of like this like instinctual fear of like, I need to stop right now because I feel like loss of control.
And that's why you have to do a lot of focusing exercises, which I teach. And then there are different techniques for you to like stay in those higher realms, and you have to be extremely grounded. So anytime you are going to like do a spiritual practice of any kind, even like astrology and tarot, like you have to be grounded, you have to be eating enough, you have to be exercising, like, because then you have more control. Then you're corded to your body and you're not going to get trapped. Like same with sleep paralysis.
Yeah.
It's about grounding.
Yeah, I agree.
But yeah, so meditation, I would say like that has brought some interesting things. One thing weird with ghosts is like, isn't it strange? Do you have this where when you come across a ghost, like you immediately know their whole story? I think that's kind of what you were saying before. It's like, you know,
a transfer of information.
Yeah, because this is a really weird ghost story. When I was in meditation, I had that experience where this woman was like, help me, help me. And I saw her like physically. I saw her. She was like a kind of, for lack of a better word again, because I need to work on my vocabulary, but frumpy. Like she was just like this kind of frumpy woman with like a big nose. She was wearing like really basic, like non-flattering clothes. And I could tell she was like Italian or something like that. And she told me her name was Helen, and she needed help because her son had married a woman that she didn't want him to marry, and she had caused a lot of chaos with that, and she needed to like repair things because there was like a lot of drama around that situation where she was like trying to get them to not be together and all this. And there was other things she told me that I can't remember because it was a long time ago, but it was so intense. And after the meditation, I could feel her in my room. And so I said to her, I'm like, I know you're not a bad person. So I'm like, you can hang out with that one plant, but that's all you get. If you want to be around me, you get that one plant. You can take care of that plant. Cause I could tell she was like a healer. She was very, she had very strong, like healing, nurturing energy. I said, but that's it. Like, I'll try to figure out what I can do. Cause I really didn't know how to help her at this point because I was like so new to all this. So right after that, I got on the phone with my grandmother, and she's from Chile. And I said, Grandmama, I had the craziest meditation. I was coming down from like this ecstatic state of meditation. And I got into this weird plane. I explained the whole thing. And I said, and I met this woman. And she said, well, tell me about her. I said how she looked. And she was like, did she have kind of reddish hair? I'm like, well, yeah, she did. And she said, well, tell me more about her. So I told her the whole thing about the son and the marriage. And she said, wow, okay. She said, wait, was her name? And as she was saying, was her name, I said, her name was, and I said, Helen. And she said, Elena, like Helena. And I said, wait, what? She said, wait, did you just say Helen? And I said, did you just say Elena? And she was like, that's your great grandmother. And she was like, before she passed, she was having a huge fight with her son about the woman that he was going to marry. She hated her. She didn't want her to be a part of the family. And she like was on her deathbed, was like, I do not love her. I do not love you. I disown you because you married her. And I think just the fact that I was able to relay that to my grandmother, like healed that situation, you know?
Awesome.
So yeah. So you can definitely meet ghosts in meditation.
Great.
Okay, so you do have a couple of questions here. So Verena is wondering, when did you get interested in tarot cards, and also what kind of cards do we both use? So
my grandmother actually, and I don't even know if she uses this. I don't know how she got into this, but she started me on the Doreen Virtue angel or archangel cards. And it's just kind of like you ask a question and it says brilliant idea, or like very
like unconditional love.
yeah sweet, and it's really positive. And so I would use those and kind of guide myself during the day, and I would study the archangels and trying to like call upon them when I needed them and stuff like that. So I think I was probably like 14 or something like that, when I really was trying to focus. I'm sorry, there's a squirrel just like belly flat up on my, he is like chilling hardcore. His arms are hanging down on the sides and his legs on my fence. He's staring right at me. And then I think tarot I got into just recently, actually, because I think I was a bit wary about it. But I was using the Aquarian tarot deck.
I have that deck.
It's so pretty. But that's my ex-boyfriend bled on them and I sent them to him.
Oh.
So I don't have those anymore. I've just been using, because I think like the energy surrounding me lately has been really chaotic, and I don't really, like when it comes to pulling serious, because I feel like Aquarian tarot is pretty serious. When it came to that, like the cards, the energy was more like forceful, or I don't know how to say it, like matter of fact, I guess. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't kind. It was just like, this is it. So I'm kind of glad I don't have those anymore, at least right now, because I needed the coddling of the Doreen Virtue Angel Tarot deck.
Yeah.
So I've been using that just because it's like, it still offers me advice and wisdom, but it's like a more nurturing way of gaining that wisdom. I'm definitely planning, like, because I don't think it gives me enough. I'm planning on buying a new deck. I haven't decided which one because it's important.
It is really important. And when you have the right deck, you'll feel an energetic connection with it. Like I've received downloads of knowledge from decks. Like I can't explain it, but it like, even I was like, okay, what's happening? Like I got a deck and it was like, whoosh, you know, but then other decks, it's like, I'll never connect with them, even though I own them because they're beautiful.
Yeah. I feel like I never really connected with Aquarian. It just didn't seem like kind to me. I don't know if that makes sense, but
no, it does make sense. And do you want to hear something funny about Doreen Virtue?
What?
She has like totally just turned Christian, and she's like, you know, you shouldn't talk to the angels, like you should talk directly to God. So now she's like writing Christian books, and she has like a Christian talk on her YouTube channel.
Oh my God.
Like, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, because actually like I watched one and I was like, you could agree with every single point that she brings up, like completely, because she's.
However, I don't feel like her other religion was just like angel based, right?
She called herself New Age. Like it wasn't even like I'm spiritual. It was like I'm New Age. And, you know.
I mean, it was directly related to Christianity though, because she names all the archangels. No?
Yeah, but she said that, just watch these videos. It was like, it is related to Christianity, but she was like, I just don't want people to think like they need to go to these other beings. They should go directly to God. So it's like an interesting, huge like career shift, and also like
crazy,
a risky move, but it's interesting to hear her out, because I've been following her since I was like 12, you know.
Yeah. She was my gateway drug into tarot and spirituality and all things. She even has like the animal cards too. Oh, I got into those when I was in college.
I don't know if I've seen her animal cards.
They're kind of like or maybe it's just the same people who are making them as Doreen Virtue, but they look exactly like the Doreen Virtue ones.
Interesting.
Yeah, I have the medicine card deck too. I use those just kind of for fun, because obviously that's not my heritage or anything like that.
Yeah.
And I don't think that they can really connect with me, spirit animals and stuff, since I'm just a white European girl.
Okay, people say that, like people say, oh, I'm Native American, so I naturally have a connection with nature. And I'm not denying that you don't, but even if you're a white person, you can have that same connection with nature. Like, don't think that you, and I'm just saying this for other people, because
matters though. Like I think like with Native American peoples, they like having a spirit animal is like a gift that is given to them. I'm not entirely sure what the whole thing is. So I think like just using the correct semantics when you're talking about it is important.
Yeah, that's true. And I wish I knew more about that. And I should actually have someone on to speak about that.
Totally. That'd be really cool.
So yeah, Julie, I don't know what is going to happen with Doreen Virtue. It's going to be so weird to see, but I love to hear people out, and to like, I love hearing her out because she's so intelligent. So what she's saying, like, it all makes sense, but it's just a whole different shift in perspective. But anyways, I think we should end this live stream, unless you have like any random last story that just came up.
No.
That's a lot.
I need to let them all go.
Yeah, and I think I wanted to just express that I think it's really amazing that you are sharing these stories, because like people can look up ghost stories online, but I think, you know, having someone on video sharing experiences that's not crazy, that, you know, wants to just share them because you don't, you want to connect. I don't even know what I'm saying.
No, I know, like putting it close to a person who.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah,
I should have slept more. What?
Thanks for calling me normal. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you are normal. And that's what I'm trying to say. Like, for people to just see you're a normal person having these strange experiences, that's, I think, really important, you know, because these subjects are still weirdly taboo to a lot of people, or the way that they're presented is like, you know, like, is it actually real? Who knows? Like, this person could have just been making it up. The mystery remains unsolved. And it's like, no, it's not a mystery. Like, this happened. Like, let's just accept it. Like, these are things that happen that people experience, you know, and quit acting like, who knows? Woo. So yeah, thank you so much. And if you guys have any questions for Brittany that I can relay to her, you know, that are really pressing, if you missed this live stream, let me know. But other than that, I will see you all very soon, probably next week. And if you want to book a reading with me, to look at your chart or your cards of truth, or to read your tarot, you can do that at NicoleBrenny.com. My scheduling calendar is a little bit weird right now, so just email me, hi@NicoleBrenny.com, and that will be a way for you to set up an appointment after you've looked at the options. So thank you, Brittany, and I'll see you soon. I'm gonna end this live stream, but then we're gonna still be on a chat.
Okay, great.
So bye, everyone.